Well, hey everybody, Matt Kluskowski here once again with part 2 of a two-part series on selection tips and techniques. Things that I've learned over the last few months here on making better selections. Now, if you're watching this first, make sure you go back and watch part 1, because part 1 I showed you how to get basically this person selected off of their background. Okay. Part 2, we want to talk about the little fringes and little edges that we're left with when we go and we move this to a different background. Okay, you can almost start to see them here, but you'll see them more in a second. So let's get this moved to a different background. I'm gonna hold down the Command key on the Mac, Control on the PC, click on the layer mask, which puts a selection around it. If I just Command click on this layer mask here, it just puts a selection around the head. But if I hold down the Shift key and I Command click on the other layer mask, it adds to the selection. You'll see if I hold down the Shift key, it gets a little plus sign right inside there. So that adds to the selection. So it lets me select both of what's included in these layer masks. Come up here to the edit menu, choose copy merged. Don't just choose copy, because it's only going to copy the area of whatever layer you currently have selected, which is the bottom layer. I want to copy merged, which copies everything inside that selection. Okay? All right, so let's jump over to our background and paste her in there. She's obviously way too big, so we'll use free transform to resize. And I'd say that's pretty good right there. All right, let's take a look at what we're left with here. Okay, so as we get her onto the background, we can see that wherever her hair intersects with something darker, we don't really see any problems. Wherever her hair is over something bright, we see this dark gray fringe. And this happens a lot with selections. It happens a ton. Okay, so it's totally okay. It's normal. If you don't see it, it's going to be a surprise to me. So this happens a lot, especially with wispy hair. So we've got this dark gray fringe from her original dark gray background. And then on her jacket, if you look really closely, we have a little dark gray outline. It's a fringe around her jacket too. Well, there's a way to get rid of that. And let me show you the way to get rid of it, and then we'll talk about the problem. I'm going to come up here to the layer menu, go down to matting, and it's right here at the bottom. I know it's going to be cut off of your screen. If you look at my cursor, just go to layer menu all the way to the bottom to matting and go to defringe, and just choose 1 pixel for the width here. And you see it goes away. Before, after, just like that. I mean, it's gone almost instantly. So it's a huge time saver from you going in and erasing it. Again, before, look at that, and then after. Big difference. Problem, look at her hair. Before, after. It's like a bad haircut, okay? Before, after. Take a look over on this side. Oh, it's even worse. It's like chopped off bad here. Before, after. It's like I gave her a haircut, because that's what it would look like. So let me undo, and let's talk about this for a second. We know we can get a great defringing from her jacket. We know it's not going to work for her hair, so let's just do this. Let's separate the two. Let's do what we did in the last tutorial, and just let's get the tool to work well on one part of the photo. So I'm going to take the lasso tool, make just a rough selection around, and I'm going to come up here to the layer menu. I'm going to do new layer via cut. Okay, so watch what happens when I do that. It separates the two. So now I've got her body on one layer. It's the floating head. I've got her body on one layer and her head on another layer. So let's go to the layer with the body on it and go layer, matting, defringe. Remember, 1 pixel. Zoom in. Perfect, right? Got it taken care of. No sweat there. Now we have her hair and her head on another layer. We can't use defringe. We already know that, because it's not going to work right here. So the trick that I have for you is we're going to use an inner glow layer style. Okay? Because an inner glow goes to the inside. It doesn't go to the outside, which would be bad here because it would just add to our fringe. An inner glow goes on the inside of whatever you add it to. So I'm going to double click this layer. All right, and let's zoom in a little so we can see the difference. I'm going to double click this layer, and I'm going to choose inner glow. Watch what happens. Ready? Look at that. See the difference? Before, after. Look at that. I mean, that's a big difference for basically 1 click, right? Before, after. Now, it's a little bright. All right, her edges get a little bit white here, but all we got to do is come over here and change this color, and you can just sample. You just come over here and just sample from her hair color. Okay, we want like just kind of a light yellow blondish color. Maybe drop the opacity down about 40-50%, bring back a little bit of the background. But now take a look. I'm going to hit the little preview box up here. Before, after. That's huge. Look at that, folks. That's a very, very big difference. And it's a very good finishing difference for just one click. We're not having to go in here pixel by pixel and get rid of that fringe that we see around. Okay. Now, the question comes up a lot. What do I do if I have somebody with dark hair that was photographed on a bright background? Okay, because if they were on a dark background, you really wouldn't see that fringe very much. If you had somebody with dark hair that was on a bright background, what you do is you change your blend mode from screen to multiply, and you come to your color picker, and you just click and sample a color of their hair. Okay, but the key here is don't forget to sample the color of the hair. That's pretty obvious. Make sure you change the blend mode from screen to multiply for dark hair. But for light hair, you want to keep it as screen. Okay. We'll click OK here. And so now, we come take a look. We have one last little problem. All right. And that is Inner Glow did great, except it left a glow on part of the bottom of the hair here. Because remember, we separated the head from the body. All we have to do to fix this, right click on that little effects icon over here. Okay. And there's going to be an option called Create Layer. You'll also see if you come up here to the layer menu, if you come down to your layer style, you'll see that there's an option there called Create Layer. What that does is that takes the layer style and it pushes it into its own layer. Okay. Just makes it a layer. It's no longer a live editable layer style. So now all I have to do, add a layer mask to this, set my brush color to black, and then I just paint it away. Okay. Come in here and just paint it away from any parts of the photo that it shouldn't be on. All right. So that, folks, is kind of the two-part process for getting a good selection. I mentioned it in the beginning of the first video. I've taught a lot of videos on selections. It's just, this is stuff I learn over time. The more I do it, the more I start to learn tips and tricks and techniques for making the process easier. And what I've realized is that the tools we have in Photoshop are really good at selecting firm, hard, or non-detailed edges, and they can be really good at selecting detailed edges. It just typically, they don't do both really well at the same time. So you've got to kind of use the tools and separate your selections, if you have something like this, into a two-part process. If you have someone with hair, something with very detailed edges, but something that also has very clean, crisp edges to it, the best way to attack that, just kind of break it up into two different parts. All right. Well, folks, hope you enjoyed. My name is Matt Kloskowski, and I'll talk to you again soon.